There's nothing like being in the stands cheering on your favorite team. Game Time is your hack to unlocking amazing tickets in just a few taps. Plus, their Game Time guarantee means you can trust you'll get 100% authentic tickets at the best price. Fees are always included, so what you see is what you pay. Get the best deals on sports tickets. Download the Game Time app and create an account to start searching for tickets to upcoming games and events. Swipe, tap, ticket, go. Game Time. Feeling under the weather? You can teledoc that. Actually, for almost everything health-related, checkups, check-ins, and everything in between, you can teledoc that. Visit teledochealth.com to get started. TELADOChealth.com.
If you want to feel more connected to humanity and a little less alone, listen to Beautiful Anonymous. Each week, I take a phone call from one random anonymous human being. There's over 400 episodes in our back catalog. You get to feel connected to all these different people all over the world. Recent episodes include one where a lady survived a murder attempt by her own son. But then the week before that, we just talked about Star Trek. It can be anything. It's unpredictable. It's raw. It's real. Get Beautiful Anonymous wherever you listen to podcasts.
Hi, I'm Stephanie J. Block.
And I'm Mary Lee Fairbanks. Welcome to Stages Podcast,
where we're bringing creation and connection to center stage.
Hello.
He's here.
Here I am. Look at you. Now, this is just a podcast. You're not going to be
That's
seeing
exactly
me.
right.
I mean, I don't mind. I don't care what I look like. It's just that suddenly, Steph, I saw you two looking gorgeous with your good light, and I'm sitting here on my bed.
Welcome to the podcast, two-time Tony nominee Gavin Lee, who is highfalutin because he has a British accent, and we're now going to have to be smarter than we really are just to even keep up with this witty friend. Gavin Lee to stage. Gavin to the stage.
Hi. Hi.
Gavin, I'm quickly going to pass the torch to my friend Mary Lee, whom I don't believe you've met in person.
No, we've never met.
But she has a very, very intimate story and connection with you that right away I want her to share.
Okay.
Well, it's so good to meet you, and thank you so much for being here with us today. I really appreciate it. But I have to tell you this story. So it was a summer that my son turned 5. He had just had a birthday. My husband was traveling. And so last minute, I thought, okay, let's just jump on a train from Boston and we're going to go to New York City and we're going to see our very first Broadway show. And I'll show you where I used to live. And of course, the show was Mary Poppins. So we are driving into the train station, and you know how little kids are, right? Everything is so new to them. So to them, everything is kind of magical, right? So he sees the Tobin Bridge in the distance and he thinks, Mom, it's a Ferris wheel and it looks like it's chasing after the car. And, you know, then he's on the train and the train master says, we're going 150 miles an hour, folks. This is what it feels like. And my son says, oh, I wonder if Lightning McQueen could catch us, you know? So like moms do, I was saying, well, honey, you know, eyes play tricks and that's just a cartoon. And of course I'm teaching, right? But then we get to New York and we get to Mary Poppins. His favorite part of the movie had always been the rooftop dance. So when you came out and you did your tap dance, he couldn't believe his eyes. And it sort of created this mood of how the world really can be magical, which I think is the whole point of the show, right? So we're in the middle of Times Square heading home, and it's nighttime and it's dark and we're holding hands, and he looks up at the sky and he's like, Mom, I didn't know you lived in a carnival. So then we're heading back home, and the whole train ride home, he spent looking out the train window on the rooftops, searching for Bert. And so he would say, Mom, I see him. And by the end, I stopped correcting, and I was like, I see him too, baby. I see him too.
Oh my gosh.
So
Isn't
lovely.
that, though, the reason, the main thing I think that I give back? I don't, you know, I'm not one of these people where I give loads of time and money and things like that to the world. But as an actor, I think I can, and I'm not the type of person to say I feel proud ever, but I do feel proud that if just one kid in the audience when you're doing a show their heart is exploding and their face is a beam of light because of what you as an actor, along with all the other different cogs of the theatre, are doing up on that stage, is making them just light up inside, then that is such a reward. And you go, oh my gosh, I'm giving this kid something. And for that show, of course, I was so lucky. I always say, a lot of people say, my favourite part of Mary Poppins is when you tap dance on the ceiling. And I would always just say, I was the lucky actor that got to originate that role and get to do that trick. Because it's basically, it was a trick. It was, can you be attached to a harness, walk up the side of the proscenium arch and tap dance upside down? And yes, it took a lot of practice, but in the end, that was people's favorite bit. And I was the cog that made all that happen. I just feel very lucky that I got to do that. But one thing I was envious of was whoever the actress was playing Mary Poppins. You'll remember at the end of the show, she flies across the stage, but then right at the end, she starts flying out into the audience. And they would all say their heart would just grow bigger every time they flew out as Mary Poppins at the end, because they saw all these kids' faces just bright and wide-eyed. And oh my gosh, Mary Poppins is flying over my head. And I was always envious that I knew the kids' faces were doing the same for what I was doing, but
you couldn't witness it.
I was on stage, so
that.
I couldn't see it. But she was out in the audience, giving that light and warmth and joy to all those young faces and older faces, because that show just brought out the childhood in everyone who was in it, and certainly everyone who was watching it.
Now, if we were to go back though to 5-year-old Gavin, right? Were you already, did your parents take you to see theater in London? Were you already in tap classes? Like, what did that little person look like? And was the performing arts or performing live on your radar at all when you were that age?
Really, there was nothing on my radar till I was perhaps 9 years old. My sister was older than me. She went to dance class because she was a shy little girl. And so her regular teacher said to my mum, why didn't you put her in ballet class? Because it might bring her out of her shell. And I always say this, I was like Mike from the chorus line saying, I'm watching Cisco Pitter Pat.
I can do that.
Exactly. So she'd come home. I'd say, what did you do today? What did you do today? Annoy. And she'd show me and I'd learn it. And eventually my mum was like, where do you want to go? And showing my age, this was 1980. My very first class that I ever joined was disco dancing. It was a disco dancing class. Oh, come on. And I learned the Snoopy and the bus stop, all these little routines that John Travolta and the like were doing.
I see it now. Donna Summer, she lives in you. She lives in you, Gavin Lee.
I was thinking more John Travolta in the white suit, but okay, Donna Summer, fine. The very first big show I remember, we went down to London. I grew up 2 hours east of London. And you've got to remember, because England's so small, 2-hour drive is long. And many people in my school had never been to London. Even though I'm sure Americans are like, what? It's 2 hours away. It's nothing. And after years later, touring the States and driving for 24 hours to get to the next city for the show is nothing. But 2 hours. But back then, it was a big deal to go down to London, and we went to the Palladium, which is one of the biggest and best theatres in London. Mm-hmm. And it was Singing in the Rain with Tommy Steele, who was a big British star in the 60s because of Half a Sixpence and other movies, and a pop star. And he was starring in Singing in the Rain, playing the Gene Kelly role.
Don Lockwood.
Don Lockwood, yes. Sorry, I was then thinking of Donald O'Connor. Not Don O'Connor, Gene Kelly. Idiot. The whole show was amazing because it was a big budget show. But when he started doing the Singing in the Rain number and the rain was falling on him, and Tommy Steele's known for this big, cheesy grin that he has. And he just stood there and the rain was pouring down on him and he's singing, do, 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 do. I was just like, he's getting rained on inside. I was about 11 years old.
Magic. The magic.
I couldn't believe it. And I'm very happy to say one of my many favorite moments of being an actor is many years later, I got to play Don Lockwood in a regional production of Singing in the Rain. And during the tech, the first time they said, okay, we're going to do the Singing in the Rain number, Gavin. And all the cast came, out to watch because they wanted to see it, and it wasn't a big budget production, but they still managed to have the rain and just singing do with an umbrella, and it's rain. You're on a stage,
full circle,
inside, fully closed, and it's okay that you're getting drenched, and you get to sing and dance your heart out. And you're right; it's the magic of theatre. What you can do in that little box of the proscenium arch, you can make people believe anything. And the amazing thing is that you can feel it as well, because it's not. You can make anything happen on screen, on the TV, or in a movie. But to be able to do the magic that the technical people can do, and then you add on top the lighting and the sound and the makeup and the costumes, and then the actor is the last thing, all those things coming together to make magic is just the best thing in the world. And it's still so thrilling to me when I go to a show and I sit down and I see something I've never seen before.
And when you're singing Doobie Doo Doo and it's raining on you, what's going through your mind in that stage of your career and your life?
I mean, before that show, I had been in the ensemble of a couple of West End shows. I spent a lot of time with Crazy for You, the original production, the Susan Stone, Mike Cochran production. That was the
first Broadway show I ever saw. And boy, did it shook me to my core to see Slap That Bass with the girls being used as the bass. I mean, I sat in the theater and I don't know, I think I was 19 or 20 when I finally got to see a show in New York. And I just went, I can't believe they're doing that with the human body and clever choreography and this underscoring. For me, I had to get to New York City because of that show. What a gift to be part of that company.
I mean, to be in that was my first, being in an original cast. But anyway, my point, just because I could talk about Crazy for You and what the path that sent me on. My point was I got to play that lead role in that. But after that, I had some other understudying things, and Singing in the Rain, in a way, was the first time I got offered a job outright. So that's a thrill as an actor. Yeah. I don't have to audition. You're offering me Don Lockwood at the Leicester Haymarket, which was a great theatre in England. He'd seen me in Crazy for You playing the lead. Yeah. And so Singing in the Rain, when I'm standing there getting rained on for the first time in tech, it's kind of the first thought is like, oh my gosh, how lucky am I? And the second thing is, it certainly wasn't, I suppose it was like, this could be it. This could be the pinnacle. It certainly wasn't, okay, I'm doing this. Things are only going to get better. I've always been very much feet on the ground. And now, even 30 years later, your feet have to be on the ground, because after all that I've done, before the pandemic, there were not jobs like people. So
what you're telling me, you have to audition? People just don't throw the roles at you, Gavin?
It's happened. I think it's happened 2 or 3 times. One of them being Singing in the Rain. You still, I've got to think of a song, and how am I going to impress the people? So Singing in the Rain was a pretty big deal, because not only it was that part, and that was the first show I really saw and fell in love with theatre, but also it just got offered to me, and wowzers. You had a pick, like, you've been offered 3 jobs. Which one are you going to take? I mean, that's that's happened to me like once. I'd been out of work a whole year. I came back I'd finished Mary Poppins, which was an 8-year job. I got offered Top Hat, which was the Fred Astaire musical in London. Went back, did that, an amazing role to play. Came back here, and then didn't work for a whole year. And that's when my feet, after the 8 years of Mary Poppins being on cloud 9, and then getting offered Top Hat, a big West End show that won the Olivier that year, feet up in the clouds. It was suddenly like, poof, crashed down to earth. Oh, I haven't had a job for a year. Yeah. And again, my point is, I then got a workshop, which was 6 weeks, and I got a little TV job that lasted 6 weeks, and they both clashed, and I had to Turn one down. You're like, I've had nothing all year. I have two jobs that last 6 weeks each. It's the same 6 weeks. Then you're like, no.
So you're raised outside of London. You then primarily start working in London. Then a glorious partner, woman, collaborator enters your life.
Yep.
She is American, but you meet her in London. Do I have that right?
That's correct. So my beautiful, gorgeous wife of 16 years this September, we met in London. She's an opera singer in the Midwest, like at high school. She's doing the musicals. She's singing. She's in choir. She loves theatre. They go to Minneapolis whenever they can to see Les Mis, to see Phantom, to see Joseph, to see all those 90s shows, 80s shows that are touring in the 90s. I mean, she doesn't really know what she's going to do because in the Midwest, not many people from her tiny little town go off and be actors that make money, you know. So she goes to college in Mankato, and she's not even majoring in music or theatre, but she's auditioning and getting the roles in all the theatre department shows. So thank God for one of her professors. And she says, you need to go and train in this. You need to go to New York or you need to go to London. And Emily, my wife, had never been to New York. She'd been to London with her high school choir when she was 15. So she chose London. So her and her dad went on a flight to London, auditioned for 3 or 4 drama schools and got into one. And then she had 3 glorious years being an American student in a British theatre college. And I actually came in to her college and choreographed her year's graduation show, like the showcase they do in front of the agents.
Sure. Wow.
And I have to say, I didn't ask her out until the graduation was over. She graduated.
But did you notice her? Did you think, ooh, she's beautiful? Like, was it one of those things you sort of saw her across the room and said, oh, I can't wait for graduation day?
Thank God. I have to say, on day one, they all come in. Me and the director of the showcase, we introduced ourselves because, you know, we're not teachers. They just hire us to come in to do the one showcase. So we were working with them, you know, for the month on all their pieces, all their songs and their dances and things. We started dating, and then within about a year we moved in together. And only a few months after we'd moved in together, and we were really like solidly, this is it, we're together. And by then, of course, Emma graduated and she was working and she was doing the tour of Kiss Me Kate, the Michael Blakemore tour of Kiss Me Kate, understudying Kate on the UK tour. And that's when I auditioned for Mary Poppins. And she's kind of been there from just before I kind of felt like I went a couple of rungs up the ladder of the, you know, like suddenly I got a role that I got to originate. It was a very big deal to get to create a role from scratch. And so she's been there from the beginning. And I have to say, maybe I wouldn't be sitting here if I hadn't married Emily, who was American, and we got our act together and I got my visa. The Mary Poppins opened in London and we'd done 2 years, and they were auditioning for the Broadway cast, and they told me and the girl playing Mary Poppins at the time, you're the benchmarks, but we're looking for every character. We're looking for all the roles in America.
So you didn't have first right of refusal overseas, over the pond, as they say.
I certainly didn't. That's something, Steph, you learn later on when you've perhaps originated a couple of roles, that you can get that sort of thing in your contract. I feel very lucky. Of course, I feel lucky that I have Emily in my life, but an added bonus was that she was American. We got my green card through her. So when the opportunity came up and they auditioned for everyone on Broadway, they knew that they didn't have to finagle any kind of visa for me because I was allowed to work in America. So who knows? I like to think I was so wonderful in the role, they would have brought me anyway and they would have got me a visa, but I'll never know that. And I have to thank my lucky stars that my wife is American. And so I was able to come and work here. And so she's a big reason, obviously, while we're still here now. Who knows?
Amazing.
If
What
I
was happening
on-
with her career at the time? And was that a discussion? Had she finished the tour of Kiss Me Kate? Did you guys see it as a blip on the screen, or did you see it as an indefinite move? Like, what was that discussion looking like?
Well, it was a sacrifice for her. So she was doing the Kiss Me Kate tour when I then opened with Mary Poppins. And then during my second year of Mary Poppins in London, she got into Phantom in the West End. So for her, it was a big deal. It was her first West End show.
Yeah.
She was understudying Madame Giry. In that year that she did it, she went on for quite a few months playing Madame Giry. So she was getting known by all the casting directors in London. She was there. She'd arrived. She was in the West End. And me getting offered Bert in Mary Poppins on Broadway meant you've got to leave your job. So the lucky thing was, of course, Mary Poppins is, as well as Disney, it's a Cameron Mackintosh production. And of course, Phantom of the Opera is a Cameron Mackintosh production. So
shared
Cameron
producers.
Mackintosh team, they already knew me and they already knew my wife.
Mm-hmm.
So it was okay when we said, oh my gosh, we're so grateful you're going to let me come to Broadway, but Emily's going to have to leave the show earlier. And they were like, that's fine. That's fine. We're sad to lose her. And it was hard for Emily because I, in a way, dragged her to New York. There wasn't a lot I could do to push her career forward in New York. She didn't know how it all worked in New York. I didn't need to know how it worked in New York because I was coming with a great big flashy job, and my British agent set me up with some American agents and I had my pick.
But
So
wasn't there any
it was
world
hard.
where you could, in your negotiations, say, is there a way to get my wife from Phantom in the West End into Phantom in New York? Or
well, when it's your first of anything, you're bringing me and only me over to Broadway. You're going to put me up in an apartment. You're going to get me a car home from the theatre. I mean, things that I'd never had before.
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't about to say, well, I'm only coming if my wife can be in Phantom on Broadway. It's just like, there wasn't even there's no way I would have said, well, here's something extra I'm going to need, because we were just so grateful that we were going to go on this amazing journey, which was Broadway in lights, this place that we both never thought we would ever get to experience.
Can you compare the differences between working in the West End and working in New York on Broadway?
I mean, initially, it all felt different and new and more sparkly and more lights because, of Times Square. When you get down to the nitty-gritty of just doing the show day by day, it's exactly the same. All the theatres in the West End and Broadway are old and smelly, and they've got rats, and the backstages are horrible.
It's all part of the charm.
It's the same. And after 6 months, some of the cast are notoriously bored and not giving 100%, and you're bitching about them. Apart from the accents, I feel like the work ethic is almost the same.
Yep.
The talent, I feel, is the same. But it's just more cool about saying, oh, I'm on Broadway.
I cannot speak to being on stage per se as an artist. I've done like a West End cabaret or my solo show in the West End. But I will say this, as an audience member, I certainly can tell the difference. I remember going and seeing Warhorse. You want to talk about the magic of the puppetry and suspending your disbelief, seeing the humans within the horse and the puppets and whatnot. But I was so engaged and engrossed that when the curtain call came, I was on my feet, like clapping my hands like I was
on your own.
Mets game. I'm like, yeah. And I'm looking around going, what the hell is wrong with these people? So I will attest that when you're doing a show on Broadway and the energy that you're getting back and the sort of communication that you're having between the audience and the actor is far different. At least it feels that way as a spectator, right? Than when you're in the West End. So did you notice that it's like a much more of a communal and excitable experience with the audiences on Broadway?
Yeah, and to generalize, which I shouldn't. I apologize. But this is even a bigger, more generalization that might insult people. But I'd say Americans aren't afraid to be loud.
Well, that's true.
It's not true in everyday life. It's like, and as an actor, I'm completely happy to have an audience full of Americans that want to stand up, laugh, and clap me at the end. Because that's me being I want to come on stage at the end after doing what I've done and sweated and hopefully left my heart on the stage, and have everyone out there stand up, and I can visually see that, oh, you thought I was great. Because they're cheering and they're standing up. Much more than I come out and I'm exhausted and I gave it my all and you're just clapping politely.
Yeah.
Then I'm like, oh, well, sod you. But
yeah. But on the other side, right? Pirate Queen, huge, epic. I was exhausted. 23 songs. Just I talk about leaving it all on the stage. I did that.
Yeah.
And then the audience would applaud, and I'd be inside my head. I was like, and the crowd goes mild, because it just was like, yay, you did that. Good for you. You did that.
Did your kids see you as Bert?
I just regret that 8 years of my life was Mary Poppins, and my kids came along in the last 2 years. So she was way too young to see the show. She did actually come and see me and Em playing in the Broadway production of Mary Poppins in our last week before I left for us to go back to London to do Top Hat. So she was about 2 and she saw the show. She can't obviously remember it, but I do love that they came to see the Grinch, like Daddy playing that disgusting, despicable green monster that hated everyone and scared the children in the audience. I guess they're too young to even be proud of Daddy. And it's just what Daddy does. It's his job. Even when Daddy was in SpongeBob, of course, what kid isn't going to enjoy coming to watch that show? It was so great, inventive and amazing to watch for kids and adults, with such a good message and good storylines and great songs. So, yes, they came to see SpongeBob on Broadway probably 4 or 5 times.
They filmed the original company. Talk a little bit about that, knowing that SpongeBob will live forever because it has been documented on film. Yes. Is it still streaming now? It's still available now, yes? That is one of the... the SpongeBob job was amazing. And it was amazing because I always take my hat off to Tina Landau. She was the director and she was the creator of this version of SpongeBob, this immersive, live, real human beings playing the characters, because she was such an amazing leader. That's why it was such a wonderful experience. And one of my favorite points of that whole experience was we closed the show on Broadway and we all felt that we closed too early. You did. Yeah. We were kicked out of the palace because they had some agreement, like when they got the money, millions they needed to do that renovation that is still going on. They're going to make a mall out of it. Yeah. Yeah. They could kick us out if we went under the amount you have to sell every week and all those boring Broadway contract things. So we were all very sad because this was our baby and it was Tina's baby. To get an email a whole year after you've closed the show on Broadway, and the email's like, this is Susan Vargo, the producer. We've got some exciting news. Nickelodeon have decided they want to document the show. So what do you feel about all getting together again for 2 weeks, rehearsing and doing the show again so we can film it? But you just mentioned now the palace is under construction to build, whatever they're building within the building and under the building, under the theater. So where did you have to go and what was that about? Like, where did the company come together to film this? So because the producer, she basically had this big check from Nickelodeon, which must have been millions, because by then the tour was going on with all the set and all the costumes and all the wigs and all the shoots. To rebuild everything. Oh, wow. So it was like Nickelodeon were willing to build this from scratch. And a Broadway show costs upwards of 10 million, if not 15 million. There's a few theatres that have the space and the knowledge and the wardrobe department and the set building department that can build it, make it for you. And none of those were available for the time slot that the creative team had. So we end up rehearsing for 2 weeks in New York. And I was going to tell you my favorite point of that whole experience was after a whole year away from Broadway, walking into that rehearsal room on day one and just seeing everyone and going, what are we doing with all that together? Because, you finish a show on Broadway or any show in any theatre
you're never going to be with that group of people again. So we did 2 weeks rehearsal there. We all flew to Heathrow in London. We all, and so a lot of the cast, American, are like, oh, we're going to go and film it in a West End theatre, because for a lot of Americans, it's like, I'm going to get to go to the West End.
Yeah.
But it was like, I was like, I'm sorry, guys, it's not what you think. we all got on a coach, so like 2 coaches, drove for 4 hours to almost like the southwest tip of England to Plymouth, where the Plymouth Theatre Royal is a theatre that does lots of tryouts for the West End. So that theatre had the availability and the people to be able to build the whole thing. And we filmed it with half of the seats taken out, because there were 15 cameras everywhere to film the theatrical version of SpongeBob. And going back to what we were saying about Broadway, American audiences and British audiences, by the end of SpongeBob on Broadway, we had got so used to
you were
the
spoiled.
fans going crazy, because we had the best, most amazing SpongeBob fans for the SpongeBob musical that came hundreds of times. They knew every joke. They applauded. They screamed at everything. So to then go to Plymouth, England, they've not had SpongeBob. We weren't getting any of our reactions. We were like, oh gosh, it's dead.
It's painful.
But the magic of editing and that, they were able to, put more applause on and more cheers than there actually were, because it wasn't fake. If you'd seen the show on Broadway, you would have seen that reaction we got. So they just enhanced, like they do with all film editing.
For the listeners that didn't see it, so you played Squidward, and you have this massive tap number. It's kind of like the 11 o'clock number of the show, but not a big belter. And you're tapping with 4 legs, right?
Yes. So I'm in rehearsals. And they've built me these kind of, crappy pair of legs. They actually bought me 2 pairs of jeans and sewed them together, butt to butt. One pair of jeans had a pair of false legs in with shoes on the end. And then I stepped into the front pair of jeans.
Right.
They weren't great, they weren't great versions. They were just to rehearse. But Chris Catelli, our gorgeous choreographer that Steph, very well from the Cher show, brilliant choreographer. He was very much... I don't know what you can do because they wanted me for my tap number to have 4 tap shoes on. They could have very easily, I could have just had my 2 tap shoes on, and the back feet could have had regular shoes and not made a noise. But Chris Catelli was like, no, let's see what we can do with 4 tap shoes on. He was very gracious, and I'm very grateful that he's a giving choreographer that was like, go into a room on your own, work out in front of a mirror what the heck you can do, what noises you can make, work out a tap solo, and then come and show me. And so I did that. And then, of course, him being the choreographer, then tweaked it, made it better. And it got incorporated into the whole number.
The show stopped with how crazy the audience went for that magic. That was magic.
It was magic. And again, I'd come out a stage door, and just like Bert, the chimney sweep, tap dancing upside down, I'd come out and the audience members would go, that was my favorite part of the show. Yeah. Your number was my favorite part of the show. Your number, they'd point to me. And I'm always very feet on the ground and gracious that's because I'm the lucky guy that got to wear David Zinn's ridiculous legs that looked so brilliant. I'm the lucky guy that got to sing that great song written by They Might Be Giants. Yeah. And I'm the lucky guy that got to do the script written by Carl Jarrow and directed by Tina Landau that made Squidward an arc in the storyline where by the time I sung my song, the audience were begging for Squidward to get his moment in the limelight. I'm just so grateful. I always want to make sure people realize that the tap dancing upside down and the tap dancing with 4 legs, how lucky was I that I got that part and I got to do that trick that you now think is so cool.
I took such pride as an artist to form a character and have that backstory and have like the continuation of her story after you take your bow. And somebody broke it down to me, and I was a little prickly at first when they mentioned it, but they said, with all due respect, nobody sees all that. Nobody even remembers all. They remember moments. It's all about a moment in that story. And you don't want to accept that as an artist because you really do fine tune and take care. And every scene is like a baby for you. And you want to just mold it with nuance. But for the person who is taking in all of this spectacle and all of your senses are being assaulted at some point during this show, that all they can leave with is a moment or two that really, really touch them. You have this gorgeous resume of these incredible theatrical moments.
Yeah.
But the truth is, Stephanie, those moments can't be read and felt as real unless you bring all of that work and all of that backstory. That's what makes it real. And that's what they feel. If you go out and try to create a moment, it will actually fall quite flat.
You're right. You're right.
But it's the work that you brought in and the energy and the love and the passion from not just you, but from everybody around you who's helping you build that moment.
That's right.
That's what creates it.
That's how it lands.
The audience knows if it's genuine or not.
Whether you're solving murders during breakfast, cracking cold cases on your commute, or playing amateur detective at bedtime, Amazon Music's got millions of podcast episodes waiting. Just download the Amazon Music app and start listening to your favorite true crime podcasts ad-free, included with Prime.
What was it like to spend the day with Dick Van Dyke?
Oh, it was awesome. In my 6th year of Mary Poppins, we go to the Armandson in Los Angeles and perform the show there. And of course, on opening night, who is in the 3rd row center? So exciting. I don't even remember, at the very top of the show, the curtain goes out and there's all the it's all like a chimneyscape and there's smoke everywhere and everyone is standing like in profile in black, all the characters from the show, like they're almost like they're chimney tops. And you see my chimney brush, dee, 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 like coming through the smoke. And I come up and I look over the rooftops of London and sing, "Winds in the east, there's a mist coming in." And of course, as I'm looking out, immediately I'm like, well, obviously I'm going to see where he is immediately. And it's like there was this aura of light on him. I'm sure it wasn't, but in my eyes, I was like, bing, there he is. And he's sitting there with his white hair, beaming, because what Dick Van Dyke's always beaming is just such a fantastically happy bloke. And I guess after that opening and me seeing him there, I kind of ignored him for the rest of the show. I was like, I'm going to get on with my version of Bert. I'm not going to think about the Bert that's sitting there. But then I was really lucky in that I knew that at the end of the show, he was willing to come up on stage because 6 years earlier, Julie Andrews had come to a gala performance in London and she'd come on stage and been very gracious in kind of saying, she is Mary Poppins, but now it's time for her to hand the parrot head umbrella to the next generation of Mary Poppins or something wonderful like that. So yes, he was very gracious. Of course, he was so gracious about how he loved the show. And then Disney was so kind. They arranged for me and him to have lunch together at the Walt Disney Studios. And they kind of sprung it on me. Entertainment Tonight, the TV show, turned up.
Da, 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 da,
yeah, and I thought it would be cool, the two Berts together. And we got there, so I'm ready to, we're going to have a little interview at the end of our lunch. And they put mics on us, and the cameraman's there, and the sound guy, and they went, and I'm looking around like, so where's the interviewer? And they go, okay, Gavin, so what we thought was, it's going to be about 10 minutes long. We thought we could start here where Dick Van Dyke's got his handprints, like on the wall. There's all these handprints. Yeah. We could start here because it's, and you can ask him about this. Then we'll walk down Goofy Lane or whatever it's called, down to the Studio 6, whichever one, where they did most of the filming. And there's a plaque of the Julie Andrews dedication plaque there. And we'll finish the interview there. And I'm like, I'm interviewing Dick. I'm not an interviewer. So I was like, oh my God, you could have let me know. So I'm trying to just keep the conversation going and ask him things. And he's an amazing person. And at the lunch, he would talk about everything. But a couple of his answers were like, so Dick, what was it like being back here at the studios? It's really good.
And Can you elaborate?
And I'm like, I'm not an interviewer, so I haven't got the next question ready. So they edited it. Ended up being probably like a two-minute piece on Entertainment Tonight, and they edited it But at the time I was like, I'm not an interviewer and I don't want to be, and I wish you'd give me some notice. But yeah, and then he even came back about a month later. We played the Armandson in Los Angeles for 3 months, and he agreed to come back a month later. And I don't know if your listeners will remember this, but in the movie, as well as being Bert, he plays Mr. Dawes, who is the old bank manager. And in the movie, he's got white wig on and he's playing an 80-year-old.
Yeah.
Well, of course, we don't have a Mr. Dawes in the stage version. There's a bank manager, but it's not Mr. Dawes. So they, in the bank scene at the end, with George Banks, they just adapted the script a little bit, and they have these massive bank doors at the back. Massive set opens and the doors open. And they said, the chairman, Mr. Dawes, is here. He'd like to meet you, George. And so Dick Van Dyke is there. The doors open, and he's playing Mr. Dawes. And of course, he made a comment to us all. Of course, he doesn't need the white wig anymore. He's got the white hair. He is 80. And he didn't have any lines. He just waddled on with a cane. And it took the audience a little while to work it out, because they didn't announce it in the middle of the musical of Poppins, that you could see they were all like, oh my God, I think that's Dick Van Dyke. And he just, you know how he does his pratfalls, you know, so he was wobbling around, and all the other bank people in the scene would like, oh, are you okay, Mr. Dawes? And like hold him up. He didn't even have any, they had like they put one line in for him, but the audience went crazy. And anyone who wasn't in that scene, like me, in the wings, just crying with happiness and laughter that Dick Van Dyke had decided to come on our stage and be part of our show. And another one in the list of what's your most memorable moment. I've had so many, and that's just another one I love to tell.
And now, our 5 questions. Tell us something surprising about yourself, something that most people may not know.
I'm pretty handy with a paintbrush or a screwdriver or a circular saw. One of my favorite things is when my wife Emily says, I've got a job for you. I love it. I'm quite handy around the house, and I think to look at me you think, oh, he's just a tall, lanky British geek.
Question number 2. What is your good luck charm or ritual, and why?
Don't have one. Sorry to be boring.
Nothing.
There's nothing. No, I don't have a certain warm-up. I don't have lucky gonks that I have sitting on my dressing room table.
Okay, Gav, what would you tell your 20-year-old self?
When I was in high school, we had one lesson a week, which was called computer studies. And we went to the computer studies room where there were 6 computers and 3 students shared each computer. And we did, I don't know what we did. We moved a line across the screen. That's what we did. That was the extent of my computer studies. Mm-hmm. I then became an actor and never saw a computer again. If we hadn't got together and she moved in, I don't know if I'd have a computer now. Thank God she came with a computer. I am pathetic. I cannot do a thing. And so I would go back to my 20-year-old self and say, get yourself into a computer class.
Okay. Question number 4. If you could have any talent or ability, what would it be aside from computer engineering?
It's easy. I wish with a passion that my parents had made me learn piano. I could honestly sit for 8 hours and watch a pianist's hands on a piano. Mm-hmm. It's so remarkable to me.
If you were a nail polish color, what color would it be, and what would the name of that color be?
Off the top of my head, I'm going to say, my color would be jazzy red socks. I love Fred Astaire. I love watching his movies. And I wrote a cabaret for myself that is just all about Fred Astaire. And it's just singing all the glorious Irving Berlin, Gershwin, Cole Porter songs from that era. And I've been lucky enough to play two roles on the stage that were originated on film by Fred Astaire. He used to, for awards ceremonies and things like that, he'd be on his beautiful tux but he'd wear little, he'd just have a little splash of colour. And I think I did it for my for my first Tonys. I wore little red socks just in honour of him, and I'm sure no one even saw them, but I knew they were on. Perhaps if I'm ever at the Tonys again, you'll see me with one red fingernail, and that's going to be my jazzy red socks fingernail colour.
You are hilarious, you are inspiring, and you are such a winning gentleman and friend. So thank you.
Yes, thank you so much. It really was a pleasure.
Marilee, it's been lovely to meet you. And Steph, I hope to see you and your husband and your daughter very, very soon.
And now, here's what struck a chord with us. That's Gavin Lee.
He was the sweetest.
He's a great guy all around. I mean, besides being ultra talented and doing things with his feet, only, a dozen people in this entire world can do with their feet. And I'm talking about tap dancing. But he's just a really wonderful guy. And the heart that he brings to every part. I mean, we spoke on him playing Squidward and the Grinch. And, if you look at his whole body of career, there are a lot of quote unquote cartoon characters that he's played. Mm-hmm. But I think that only works if you drench it with humanity and great heart. If you're just being silly and yucca, it doesn't have the impact that Gavin is able to bring to all these characters.
Yeah, he commits to finding the humanness within these cartoon characters. And that's why you're rooting for him in all of these crazy characters that he's playing. And that's why they feel believable.
And all drenched in this gorgeous accent. Mm-hmm. It's really quite a package. Gavin Lee is really quite a package when you put all those puzzle pieces together.
Yeah, I wish I knew his wife. He talked about her a lot, even more than we left in. He kept going back to his lovely wife, and he kept talking about how she is so supportive, and she's this, and she's that, and she's so talented, and she's such a great mom. And it was really cute. It was almost like we were interviewing him at certain points about his wife. We didn't leave it all in.
Which you should. Emily is an incredible woman and artist in her own right. And, I will say that strikes a chord within me every single day, because I can recognize how, when you are in this business and your partner or your spouse or your lover, even your child, if you have somebody in your life, when you're walking the path of an artist, the discussions are every single day, and you assess and you reassess and you reassess. And, even now, he is in the UK playing Lumiere in the UK and Ireland tour of Beauty and the Beast. He's gone for over a year, and I can't imagine what that discussion would look like. I know that Sebastian and I have them all the time. And regardless, if I'm the one that's getting the gig and having to go to work, or he gets the gig and has to go to work, if you're the one chosen, there's a guilt that you carry around going, yes, I'm on a train or I'm on the subway before or at 8 a.m. in order to get to rehearsal, and I'm not home until 7 p.m. And if you're doing the show, if you're going to be gone for a good chunk of every night and the entirety of the weekend. And then when you're the one at home and your partner is going to work, you're thinking, okay, now I'm taking on the extra responsibilities of making our daily life work, all those moving parts. It's a lot. But if you have somebody who understands that, and you're being truthful about what that looks like for you, then you just have to keep touching back in and saying, how are you feeling today? How are you feeling about this? What can I do to help? And I think this is why he spoke so highly of her, is that together as a team, the respect that they have for each other and the respect that they have for each other's craft. And you say, okay, we can do this. It's going to be hard, but we can do this. We should do this. And now let's do this. So that's where they're at. And that's the discussion they had when they were on the West End and their move to come to Broadway.
Right. Yeah.
It's a constant, like I always juggling. And like
juggling.
I said, always reassessing, always, not just once every year. This, for everybody listening, for an artist, golly, this happens every other day, every other week. It never stops.
Even for people who aren't artists, it's always important to keep in mind that every relationship, not just marriages, but even friendships, they ebb, they flow. Sometimes you're both on shore. Sometimes one of you is out to sea. Times when it's easier for one than the other. And then that that counterbalances at some point. And then there are times where you meet in the middle where it's easy for both of you and you ride the wave. That's what life is. Long-term relationships are a choice, whether they're a marriage or a friendship or even your relatives. Like you choose
That's right.
to commit someone in your life. It seems like just the way he spoke about her, that they've made the choice, So right now we're not both going to ride the wave, but one of us is, and the other one will be on short sharing. And at some point that will switch.
The two of them are quite a pair.
Do their children have accents?
No, actually, they have very English names, but they're just these sweet, curly-haired little angels / rascals. They're so fun. Here comes my little rascal now. Yes, Cookie, what do you need? Hold, everybody. I'll be right back. No, I'm not paying $9.99 for more gems. Get out of here. Okay. We'll talk later. No, $2.99. The great negotiator over here. I love you. Oh,
she's so smart. She came in with the $9.99 because she knew she'd go down to the $2.99.
I can't get that. Well, then maybe I'll get that. And that's even more than what I was expecting. So a win.
That kid's genius.
I know. I'm going to be left in the cold.
You're in trouble, Mama.
Oh my gosh. Maybe if I start talking to her like this, absolutely not, don't be utterly ridiculous, then she'd actually take me seriously. What do you think?
When Downton Abbey was on TV, I would walk around the house talking like this all the time. And Micah goes, I know you think you sound like one of the upstairs ladies, but you sound like Mrs. Patmore.
So if this episode resonated with you, please follow, subscribe, and share.
You can always find us at stagespodcast.net. We'd like to give a big thank you to our assistant editor and doer of all things technical, Saren Cho. Thank you, Noah Kaiserman and Garrett Healy for our beautiful original music, Melanie Von Trapp for our Stages Podcast logo, Ben Walding, our sound engineer, and Allison Arns, our PR and social media expert.
And thank you, our cast members, for joining us today. We hope you come back next week.